Kai's boots echoed softly against the metallic floor of the abandoned alien station, each step stirring up clouds of dust that caught the dim, flickering lights. The station had been silent for decades, yet something about the air made him tense, like the calm before a storm. Shadows stretched across the walls, warped by the irregular architecture. Strange symbols glowed faintly, casting a sickly green light that reflected in his eyes. He had been sent to investigate a distress signal, a faint but insistent pulse that promised answers or danger. He hadn't expected to find anything alive, let alone someone who could react to him in a way that would change everything. As he rounded a corner, soft noise froze him in place. It was subtle, a low, breathy sound, almost like the wind, but it had a rhythm, a deliberate pattern. Kai crouched, pressing himself against the wall, scanning the corridor ahead. That's when he saw her. She was small, crouched behind a pile of rubble, her skin shimmering faintly in the dim light, violet eyes wide with fear. She was alien, but not monstrous. Something fragile, wounded, and terrified radiated from her every movement. Her slender hands trembled as she pressed them to the floor, trying to remain unseen. For a moment, Kai simply watched, unsure if he should speak, move, or stay frozen in place. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, lowering his weapon just a fraction. The words felt strange, foreign even, as if he were intruding into a world he didn't fully understand. The alien girl flinched violently at the sound, her body shrinking back into the rubble. Kai froze, realizing that what was intended as reassurance had startled her. He took a slow, careful breath and spoke again. Softer this time. "I won't hurt you. I just want to help." For a long moment, she didn't respond, her trembling increasing, her eyes darting to the shadows around them. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, she tilted her head, as if trying to comprehend what he had said. Kai watched her, captivated and cautious, as her reaction became something he couldn't immediately understand. She gasped softly, a sound that was almost human, yet completely alien, and her body quivered, as if his words had struck a chord deep within her. He felt a jolt of surprise. He had expected fear, maybe suspicion, but not this. This reaction that left him momentarily speechless. Kai took another step forward, keeping his hands visible, calm and deliberate. "I'm not your enemy," he said. The girl's trembling increased slightly, but she didn't retreat. Her violet eyes studied him, large and luminous, reflecting both fear and something else, curiosity, perhaps, or confusion. She tilted her head again, as though trying to decode his intentions. Every instinct in Kai screamed caution, yet a part of him understood that his simple words, kindness, reassurance, were penetrating a barrier she had built around herself. The station itself seemed to sense their interaction. Faint creaks and hums echoed from the walls, the lights flickering with irregular patterns that made the shadows dance like living creatures. Each flicker of light made the alien girl shrink or lean back, and Kai realized that even small movements or sounds could terrify her. He stayed still, letting her adjust to his presence, letting her trembling guide his next actions. Every quiver, every subtle shiver was a signal, a language he had to interpret if they were to survive in this station together. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she took a cautious step toward him. Her violet eyes never left his, and her trembling, though persistent, became a form of communication, a rhythm of trust and fear intertwined. Kai smiled softly, feeling the weight of the moment settle around them. Here, in the midst of a long-abandoned station on a distant world, he was witnessing something rare, a first contact not defined by hostility, but by cautious recognition, and the fragile beginnings of trust. Can you move?" he asked, gesturing to a small corridor that led to a safer area. The girl nodded, her trembling intensifying for a brief moment, then settling into a steady rhythm as she took the lead. Kai followed, careful not to make sudden movements, aware that the slightest noise could undo the delicate balance they had just established. The station corridors twisted and turned unpredictably, filled with rubble, flickering lights, and shadows that threatened to hide dangers at every corner. He realized that survival here would depend not just on skill or weapons, but on reading her cues, on learning the language of her trembling and subtle gestures. As they moved deeper into the station, Kai caught glimpses of the alien technology. Embedded into the walls, pulsing conduits, panels of shifting light, and strange machines that hummed with an energy he didn't fully understand. The girl paused often, trembling, listening, and pointing subtly to hazards he might have missed. Each time, her reaction left him more amazed than the last. Here was a being whose survival instincts were unparalleled, whose fear was both a shield and a guide. He realized that her reaction to his words had been more than surprise. It had been the beginning of a connection, a bond forged in the uncertainty of the unknown. By the time they reached a small chamber that seemed safe for the moment, Kai finally exhaled. The girl leaned against the wall, her trembling gradually slowing. Though her eyes remained alert, he knelt a short distance away, careful not to crowd her space. "You're safe now," he said softly. She looked at him, speechless, her reaction a mixture of relief, awe, and lingering confusion. Kai realized that he had crossed a threshold, not just into this alien station, but into her world. And though danger still lingered, he knew one thing. With clarity, trust, kindness, and understanding had begun to bridge the gap between two species in the most unexpected way. Kai led the alien girl through narrow corridors, the shadows stretching and twisting with every flicker of the station's failing lights. Each step was deliberate. He spoke softly, careful not to startle her, aware that every word, every movement, could trigger her trembling again. She walked ahead, small and fragile, yet surprisingly aware of the environment around her. Her violet eyes scanned each corner, each shadow, and every subtle flicker of light seemed to guide her steps. Kai followed, learning quickly that her reactions were more than fear. They were a map, a silent instruction manual for survival in this dangerous alien place. They reached a larger chamber with walls that hummed faintly, the glow from embedded conduits casting strange patterns across the floor. Dust hung thick in the air, and loose panels threatened to collapse at the slightest touch. Kai motioned for her to stay back as he inspected the area, carefully checking for any threats or unstable surfaces. She shivered slightly, her trembling increasing at the sound of a distant creak from the far end of the chamber. Kai knelt down to meet her gaze. "We'll be okay here," he said, his voice steady. "I just need you to follow me and stay close." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded, her trembling easing slightly. Her trust, fragile but growing, was becoming as vital as any weapon in their survival. The alien girl moved to a corner, her small hands brushing over a section of wall that seemed worn and smooth, almost like a natural alcove. "Here," she said softly, her voice a melodic whisper that carried an edge of cautious hope. Kai studied the area and realized it could serve as a temporary shelter, a place to rest, plan, and gather strength. He motioned for her to sit and made space beside her. The trembling continued, rhythmic and tense, but it no longer had the raw panic of earlier. It was almost as if she was measuring the safety of the moment, the space, and the presence of someone she did not yet fully understand. Kai scavenged parts from the surrounding debris, setting up a makeshift barricade to protect them from wandering security drones or other threats. He moved carefully, aware that any sudden motion could scare her, and she flinched a few times despite his efforts. "It's okay," he said, each time, voice soft and calm, grounding her in the reality that she wasn't alone anymore. Her trembling slowly became a form of communications, light shifts, subtle hesitations, and small movements that Kai learned to interpret as warnings or signals. It amazed him how much her instincts could convey without a single word as they settled. The faint hum of the station became more pronounced, shadows lengthening with the flickering lights. The girl glanced at Kai, her violet eyes reflecting fear, wonder, and something unspoken, a mixture of curiosity and wariness. He smiled gently, extending a hand. "You don't have to hide from me," he said. She hesitated, trembling slightly as she took his hand, a fragile gesture of trust. It was a simple act, but in this abandoned alien station, it meant more than words could ever convey. It was the start of a connection, a bridge forming between two very different beings who had found themselves thrown together by circumstance. Minutes passed, and the station creaked around them. Occasionally, distant echoes suggested that someone or something was still tracking them. Kai's senses remained sharp, and he kept one hand near his weapon, while the other offered reassurance to the trembling girl beside him. She leaned slightly toward him, her body still shivering. Yet the movement was deliberate, almost like a silent acknowledgement that she accepted his presence. For the first time since he found her, Kai felt a sense of calm amid the chaos of fragile safety that they had carved out together, even if only temporarily. "Why? Why are you helping me?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Her trembling intensified slightly as she looked at him, her expression a mixture of confusion and hope. Kai paused, considering his words carefully. "'Cause everyone deserves a chance to survive," he said softly, "and I can't leave someone who's hurt and afraid." She stared at him, her violet eyes wide and unblinking as if trying to understand what human compassion meant. Reaction left him speechless for a moment. It was raw, unfiltered, and unlike anything he had expected, as the shuttle of thought and quiet understanding settled between them. The station outside remained ominous and unpredictable. Shadows crept along walls, and faint noises hinted that the dangers they had avoided so far were not finished. But for now, inside their small shelter, the human and the alien girl shared a fragile reprieve. Her trembling, once a sign of terror, had become a guided language of instinct and trust that Kai had learned to follow. And in that silent understanding, a bond was forming, one that neither time nor the dangers of the universe could easily break. The moment they stepped out of their makeshift shelter, Kai felt the tension coil like a living thing around him. The alien station seemed almost aware of their movements, corridors stretching endlessly, shadows twisting into shapes that could conceal anything: drones, automated defenses, or worse. The girl stayed close, her trembling returning, sharper this time, almost rhythmic, like a warning he could not ignore. Every quiver told him something was near, something that had followed them from the moment they had entered the station. Kai's hand rested lightly on his weapon, eyes scanning every corner, every flicker of light. Yet he knew that the subtle signals from her body would guide them better than any scanner or sensor, as they moved down the winding corridors. A faint metallic clatter echoed behind them. The girl flinched violently and skidded sideways, pressing herself against the wall. Kai instinctively crouched, peering into the shadows where the sound had come from. A group of sentinels, sleek mechanical hunters designed for tracking life. Forms emerged from the darkness, their glowing eyes locking onto the pair. The girl's trembling spiked, her hands gripping his arm, and Kai realized that she was more than aware of their presence. Her instincts had already calculated the danger before his mind could fully process it. The chase began. Kai fired at the advancing sentinels, energy blasts illuminating the dim corridors in jagged bursts of light. Sparks flew, and the hum of machinery became deafening as the drones adjusted their approach. The girl ran ahead, trembling but deliberate, guiding Kai through narrow side passages and over unstable floors. Every hesitation she had was a signal and unspoken instruction for him to slow, step carefully, or leap. Her trembling had transformed into a code of survival, and Kai followed it instinctively, dodging hazards and traps that would have caught any unprepared pursuer. One of the sentinels lunged from the shadows, moving faster than Kai expected. The girl let out a small, sharp gasp, pointing subtly to a structural beam overhead. Kai reacted instantly, ducking just as the sentinel's arm slammed into the floor with a shower of sparks. The corridor shook, and debris tumbled down around them, yet she barely faltered, her trembling momentarily controlled by raw instinct. Kai realized that the combination of her instincts and his experience made them almost unstoppable together. She was leading him not just away from danger, but toward an understanding of how to survive in this alien place. They reached a larger chamber, one that hummed with an unsettling energy. Panels of shifting light flickered across the walls, revealing alien machinery Kai could not begin to decipher. The sentinels were relentless, adapting quickly to their movements. The girl paused, trembling sharply, and pointed to a narrow passage partially hidden behind a wall of debris. Kai understood immediately. "This way," he whispered, and together they slipped through, moving like shadows, weaving between beams and cables that threatened to snag or crush them. The corridor narrowed, forcing Kai to crouch low and keep close to the trembling girl, relying on her subtle gestures to avoid traps. As they advanced, the station seemed almost alive, responding to their movements with creaks, hums, and sudden gusts of air that pushed against them. Girls' trembling intensified as they entered a chamber filled with a low, pulsating glow. The sentinels hesitated at the threshold, as if the energy disturbed their programming. Kai seized the moment, signaling the girl to move faster. Her small hand brushed his briefly, a silent message of trust and coordination. They ran across the room, dodging energy arcs and collapsing floors, the girls trembling, guiding each careful step. At last they reached a narrow exit shaft leading to the surface. The girl hesitated for a split second, trembling violently as if sensing a final threat. Kai placed his hand on her back, steadying her. "It's safe. We can do this together," he said. Her violet eyes met his, and in that moment, the tremor in her body softened, replaced by a fragile determination. Together, they climbed, emerging into the harsh light of the alien planet's sky. Thunder rolled in the distance, and the abandoned station loomed behind them. Its corridor silent once more, but its dangers far from gone. Breathing heavily, Kai and the girl paused, looking at each other for the first time without immediate threats pressing in. Her trembling had slowed, yet it remained a constant, subtle rhythm, a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. Kai realized that her reactions, her fear, her instinct, her subtle guidance, had saved them both countless times. In this pursuit, in the chaos of the alien station, a bond had formed, rooted in trust and survival. They had escaped, but the chase had shown him that every step forward in this strange, dangerous universe required not just skill and courage, but attention to the unspoken signals of those who shared your path. Kai and the alien girl crouched behind the jagged edge of a collapsed hallway, catching their breath as the hum of the station settled into an uneasy silence. The sentinels had paused their pursuit, but Kai knew it was only temporary. The alien girl's trembling had slowed to a subtle quiver, her violet eyes scanning the dark corridors as if searching for hidden threats. He realized that her fear was no longer just a reaction. It had become a guide, an instinctive compass that had led them through danger so far. Yet, something in her expression hinted at more than survival. There was confusion, pain, and a story waiting to be told. "We need to know what this place is," Kai said softly, keeping his voice calm. The girl's trembling intensified slightly at the sound of his words, and he realized she was not used to direct questions. Her species likely interpreted inquiry differently, perhaps as a threat or judgment. He reached out gently, placing a hand near hers, without touching, a silent gesture of patience. Slowly, she nodded and led him to a concealed chamber. The walls lined with strange glowing panels and intricate machinery that seemed both alive and alien. Dust motes floated in the dim light, and the hum of the station pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Inside the chamber, the alien girl paused, trembling sharply as she approached a central console. Her fingers hovered above the controls, and Kai could see hesitation in every movement. Then, as if compelled by a force beyond comprehension, she pressed a sequence of buttons. Holographic images sprang to life, casting ghostly light across the room. The projections showed her species isolated from the rest of the universe, trapped by their own fears and rigid customs. Documents and star maps hinted at experiments, tests, and a plan that had left her alone, stranded in the station. Kai watched, stunned as her trembling increased, not from fear this time, but from the weight of realization. She wasn't abandoned by chance, Kai murmured, understanding dawning. "They left you here to test you. We are ready." The girl's violet eyes met his, wide and unblinking, reflecting a mixture of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. Her trembling now spoke of complex emotions, a language Kai had to interpret carefully. She had survived not only the station's dangers but the manipulation of her own people. Every quiver was a story of resilience, of instinct, and of fear, transformed into survival. Kai felt a deep respect for her courage, realizing that the moments of vulnerability he had witnessed earlier were as vital as any act of bravery. A sudden flicker of movement from the shadows drew their attention. The Sentinels had returned, drawn to the chamber by the activation of the holographic systems. Kai's pulse quickened, but he stayed calm, moving to shield the girl while assessing the room for escape routes. The trembling girl's hand brushed, his arm briefly a subtle signal that she had a plan. She pressed a hidden panel, revealing a side exit, narrow and dimly lit. Kai followed her lead, trusting her instincts completely. Her trembling had shifted into purpose, guiding him through the maze-like station with precision. As they moved, she spoke softly, her voice almost a whisper. I survived because of my training, and because of you, she admitted, trembling not from fear but from the vulnerability of revelation. Kai looked at her, speechless for a moment, realizing that her reaction to his simple kindness had been intertwined with years of conditioning, fear, and survival instinct. Her species had taught her to mistrust, to hide, to react violently to strangers. Yet here she was, trembling, trusting, and willing to follow him through danger. His heart clenched with the weight of understanding. Sometimes courage is not loud or defiant, but quiet and trembling. The revelation settled between them. The station, the Sentinels, and the girl's past were all connected in a web of tests, survival, and instinctive guidance. Every quiver she had shown, every tremble he had interpreted, had been more than reaction. It had been communication, a silent story of endurance. Kai realized that their partnership had formed naturally, built on understanding rather than words. The alien girl's reaction to his simple kindness had unlocked a bond. Neither had anticipated a bond that could overcome fear, deception, and the loneliness of the universe. Finally, they emerged from the chamber into a wider corridor, a faint light casting their elongated shadows on the walls. The Sentinels were still in pursuit, but Kai and the girl were no longer just victims of circumstance. They were partners, reading each other's subtle cues, anticipating moves, and relying on the delicate rhythm of trembling that had guided them through so much. The revelation was clear. Survival was not just about skill or strength, but about trust, understanding, and the unspoken language of instinct. Kai glanced at her, and she met his gaze, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had uncovered the truth, and though danger remained, their connection had grown stronger, forming the foundation for whatever awaited them next in the vast, unpredictable universe. The corridors of the alien station seemed to close in around Kai and the alien girl as the Sentinels advanced, their metallic bodies glinting in the dim, flickering lights. Every step they took echoed ominously in the hum of the stations. Failing systems became a steady, nerve-wracking beat that matched the girl's trembling. But this time her quivers were not just fear, they were deliberate, signaling potential hazards, hidden traps, and the timing of their moves. Kai stayed close, relying on her instincts as much as his own experience, knowing that this confrontation would test not only their courage, but the fragile trust they had built. The Sentinels emerged from the shadows. In synchronized precision, their glowing sensors locking onto the pair with cold efficiency. Kai raised his weapon, firing in controlled bursts, the energy bolts lighting up the corridor in jagged flashes. Sparks flew as each blast hit a Sentinel, but there were too many, and some adapted too quickly. The girl's trembling intensified, yet she moved with an instinctive grace, guiding Kai to safer positions, her small hand brushing his arm in silent signals. Every twitch, every subtle motion became their code, a shared rhythm that kept them one step ahead of the relentless hunters. They ducked behind a fallen support beam as a Sentinel swiveled and fired, energy searing the metal beside them. Heart pounded, but he stayed calm, following the silent directions conveyed by the girl's trembling. She leaped over debris with astonishing agility, motioning him to follow a narrow passage. He did, trusting her guidance entirely, and together they navigated the twisting, collapsing corridors. The chase was brutal, each movement a calculated risk, yet their bond grew stronger with every narrowly avoided strike. The station itself seemed alive, shaking and groaning, as if it were aware of the confrontation and feeding on the tension. Between hunter and hunted, Kai realized that her species' instincts were finely tuned, far beyond human perception. She paused for a fraction of a second, trembling, and pointed to a shadowed alcove. Instantly he understood. The alcove offered a tactical advantage. He fired from cover as she emerged, moving with precision, taking down a sentinel in a burst of coordinated effort. Her trembling spiked with each successful move, but it no longer conveyed panic. It was exhilaration, a physical manifestation of courage shaped by instinct and training. Kai could see it in her eyes. Fear still lingered, but it was balanced. With determination, trust, and the adrenaline of survival, the sentinels pressed harder, cornering them in a large chamber filled with alien machinery. The girl's trembling became sharp, urgent, almost commanding. She pointed toward a control panel, and Kai quickly understood her plan. Working together, they triggered a defensive mechanism, a pulse of energy that temporarily disabled the sentinels. Sparks and arcs of alien energy filled the room as the machines convulsed, giving them a precious window of escape. Her trembling guided the timing perfectly. Without it, they would have been overwhelmed instantly, as the dust settled. One sentinel remained active, advancing relentlessly. Kai and the girl exchanged a glance, understanding each other without words. She moved first, luring the sentinel into a trap formed by the fallen machinery. Kai followed, combining human precision with her instinctive timing. The sentinel was immobilized, energy coursing through its circuits until it finally collapsed with a metallic shriek. The girl's trembling slowed, now more a sign of relief than tension, and Kai felt a wave of admiration for her resilience and strategic mind. Her reactions, once puzzling and alarming, had become the key to their survival. For the first time, it survived a confrontation not just with external threats, but with the harshness of the station itself. Breathing heavily, they leaned against the walls, the hum of the alien machinery fading into a softer rhythm. Kai looked at her, amazed by how far they had come together. Her trembling, once a symbol of vulnerability, had become a language of courage, a guide that had saved them both multiple times. In the harsh, unpredictable corridors of the alien station, trust, empathy, and instinct had triumphed over fear and danger as they prepared to move again. Kai realized that this confrontation had changed everything. The girl's reaction too, his kindness, her instinctive guidance, and their seamless coordination had forged a bond deeper than words could express. The station still held dangers, and their journey was far from over, but together they had faced overwhelming odds and survived. The confrontation had not only tested their skills, but had solidified a partnership built on trust, understanding, and the unspoken rhythm of survival. In that moment, Kai knew one thing for certain: no matter what awaited them, they would face it together, their connection stronger than any fear or threat the universe could throw their way. Kai and the alien girl emerged into a wider chamber, the hum of the alien station surrounding them like a living organism. The dangers of the sentinels had passed, but the tension in the air remained thick. Her trembling had slowed to a subtle, steady rhythm, no longer a sign of immediate fear, but a language of thought and emotion. Kai noticed how every minor gesture, every glance conveyed more than words ever could. In the silence that followed the confrontation, new understanding was forming between them, a bond shaped by survival, trust, and shared experience. They moved cautiously through the chamber, the alien girl leading the way. Her violet eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, and Kai followed closely. Trusting her instinctive knowledge of the station, he realized that she had not only survived alone, but had developed a system of communication through trembling and subtle movements that could guide another being through life-threatening circumstances. Her species had taught her survival, but her reactions to him, his kindness, his calm, had unlocked a deeper connection. He had seen fear transform into trust, hesitation into guidance, and trembling into courage. As they paused beside a central console, the girl finally spoke, her voice soft but deliberate. I understand now," she said, her trembling gentle but persistent. "You are not like the others. You did not come to control or test me. You care," Kai nodded, understanding the weight of her words. She was acknowledging more than his actions. She was recognizing his intent, the empathy that had guided him since the moment he found her in the wreckage of the station. Her trembling, once a code of survival, now conveyed comprehension and acceptance. A quiet testament to the trust they had built. Kai crouched beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "I care because survival isn't just about strength or skill," he said softly. "It's about understanding, helping, and being there for someone when they need it most. You've shown me that instinct and courage matter as much as any weapon." She tilted her head, considering his words, her trembling now almost imperceptible, like the soft beat of a heart settling into calm. The bond between them, formed under the pressure of danger, had matured into a mutual understanding that transcended language, species, and experience. They explored the chamber together, uncovering data panels and holographic records that revealed the station's purpose. It had been designed as a testing ground, a place to challenge the resilience of the alien girl's kind. But Kai and she were no longer just subjects of circumstance. They were partners, combining human intuition with alien instinct. Every hazard they avoided, every mechanical threat they outsmarted, had strengthened their connection, had guided him, and his calm had reassured her, forming a rhythm that allowed them to navigate the station with unprecedented coordination. As they reached the exit to the surface, Kai looked at her, noticing the subtle changes in her posture, the gentleness in her gaze. The trembling that had defined her initial reactions had evolved into something new, a silent language of confidence, trust, and recognition. "We did it," he said softly. She nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile forming on her lips. Her violet eyes met his, and in that exchange, words became unnecessary. They understood each other fully, the unspoken bond forged in fear, survival, and compassion. Outside, the alien sky stretched wide and unfamiliar, painted in colors that neither had experienced before. The station behind them seemed smaller now, its corridors and dangers distant memories. Kai realized that this journey had changed more than their immediate circumstances. It had transformed their perceptions of each other, their abilities, and the meaning of trust. The girl's trembling, once a symbol of vulnerability, had become a guide, a testament to resilience and the power of understanding. Together they had faced danger, deception, and isolation, and emerged stronger, united by a connection that went beyond species or words. In the quiet expanse of the alien landscape, Kai and the girl stood side by side. The station, the sentinels, and the tests were behind them, but the lessons remained. Courage could be silent. Trust could be fragile, yet unbreakable, and understanding could bridge the vastest of divides. As they looked toward the horizon, a future full of challenges and discoveries awaited them, but they would face it together. And in that moment, Kai knew that the unspoken rhythm of trust, the trembling that had first frightened him, was the strongest force of all, a bond that would guide them through whatever the universe had in store.